Hello everyone, welcome back to another session on mains questions analysis. Right. So till yesterday we have analyzed up to 12 questions in General Studies paper 2. So in this discussion we will discuss the other questions. The first question is account for the legal and political factors responsible for the reduced use of Article 356. So we all know that Article 356 is very often misused by the center against the state governments. Okay, in order to topple the state governments in an arbitrary manner, Article 356 has been excessively used by the central governments. However, since 1967, the usage of Article 356 has been increased. The center has been used this Article 356 as a weapon against the state governments. Okay, so in this context we need to understand what are the legal and the political factors which are actually responsible for the reduced frequency in use of Article 356. So in this particular question, first you need to write what is Article 356. Okay, so what exactly it says in the introduction, and in the body part of the answer, first you need to write the legal factors. So what are the legal factors that actually responsible for the reduced usage of Article 356, and then you have to write the political factors and then conclude the answer. This is the structure of the answer, right? So in the introduction, as I have said, you just have to write about Article 356. Right? So the invocation of Article 356, that is related to President's rule. Okay, President's rule in a state or a state emergency. The invocation of Article 356 of the Indian Constitution, it actually allows Union government to take control of the state governance. Okay, so when the Union government takes control of the state governance, whenever the center believes that the state has failed to perform its constitutional duties, or the constitutional machinery in a state is failed. So therefore, whenever the center is of the opinion that the constitutional machinery in a state is failed, then Article 356 can be invoked by the president in that particular state. However, there has been an increased misuse of Article 356. Because of this increased misuse of Article 356, it is a matter of concern and the controversy. So there are even examples like Maharashtra, it was used, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Arunachal Pradesh, and even Uttarakhand. So in those states, Article 356 has been used recently. So because of increased misuse of Article 356, there has been an increased concern and the controversy, okay, around Article 356. So as I have mentioned, whenever you are structuring the answer, please understand what is asked in the question and divide the question into multiple parts and address each part very clearly, so that you will get extra marks for your answer. Now, the first part of the answer is legal factors. The legal factors which are responsible for the reduced frequency of using Article 356. Okay, so this is the first part of the answer, right? So, in the first part of the answer, in the legal factors, you need to mention about the SR Bommai case. So this is a very remarkable and a significant judgment when it comes to the federal structure, because in this particular judgment, the Supreme Court held that federalism is part of the basic structure of the Constitution. Okay, so in this judgment, the Supreme Court has also held that uh, the decision of imposing a president's rule in a particular state is subjected to judicial review. So we all know what is judicial review, because yesterday we have discussed judicial review. So the judicial review is provided by the Constitution to the Indian judiciary, that is independent judiciary, through Article 13, Article 32, and Article 226. So these provisions provided for the judicial review of the judiciary. Right. So in this case, that SR Bommai case, the Supreme Court held that the decision of the president to impose president's rule in a particular state comes under the judicial review. So therefore, it cannot be imposed in an arbitrary manner. So the first legal factor that has reduced the frequency of use of Article 356, and the second legal factor is it actually shifted the burden of responsibility to the center to provide material evidence. In the same SR Bommai case, the Supreme Court has also reiterated that the burden of responsibility, so it overall shifted the burden of responsibility on the center to provide material evidence. Now, center need to provide the material evidence to the Supreme Court. So that material evidence justifies the imposition of Article 356. So because of the need for the material evidence, there is also a reduced instance of using Article 356. So that is the second. And please remember all these cases. And the second case is Rameshwar Prasad versus Union of India case. So this is the second most important case when it comes to the misuse of Article 356. So in this particular case, what a Supreme Court has said that the Supreme Court has interpreted the power under Article 356 as an emergency power. So this is not an absolute power given to the president or given to the center, but this is actually an emergency power. Now, whenever there is an emergency, whenever there is genuine failure of the constitutional machinery, only then the Article 356 has to be imposed. So therefore, there are certain constitutional limitations which are imposed by the judiciary itself, and that has led to the reduced usage of Article 356. And the other factor is judicial activism. Now, in recent past, the judicial activism has increased because of the need to protect the constitution, first thing, and secondly, ensure the basic features of the constitution, that such as the federalism, because federalism is part of the basic structure. And secondly, in order to prevent the arbitrariness and authoritarianism on the part of the center, in order to fulfill their political whims and fancies, they have been imposing the president's rule in an arbitrary manner. So therefore, the judiciary has intervened through the judicial activism, and through this judicial activism, the instances of usage of Article 356 has also reduced. So in this very same point, it is also mentioned that Article 356 now is part of the basic structure of the constitution, right? So federalism is part of the basic structure of the constitution. So the center or the executive at the center should not destroy the federal governance which has been provided by the constitution. Okay, so the second fact, the third aspect is, in fact, the interstate councils. So we all know that there was an interstate council, and the interstate council is provided by Indian constitution itself through Article 263. Okay, so the interstate council, and there was a Sarkaria commission also, the Sarkaria commission on the center state relations, and those Sarkaria commission recommendations, implementation, and interstate council, so they further strengthened the federal features and has also reduced the misuse of Article 356 by the center. Because if you know the structure of the organizational structure of the interstate council, even states also active participants. Okay, states are also active participants in the interstate council. And the other factor would be over a period of time, the center has implemented the Sarkaria Commission recommendations. Okay, the Sarkaria Commission report has been implemented. So when it was implemented, so when the interstate council meeting has took place at that particular point of time, the government has implemented the Sarkaria Commission report. So therefore, there has been a consensus between the center and the state governments, and through cooperative federalism and the collaborative federalism, the instances of misuse of Article 356 has also been significantly reduced. Now we have addressed the first part of the answer. So the first part of the answer is about the legal factors which contributed to the reduced use of Article 356. Now we need to discuss about the political factors. So this is the second part of the answer. Now, there are a wide variety of political factors. So, what are those political factors? So, the first and foremost political factor is the active role of the president. Now, if you remember the activist president, okay, activist president. In fact, K.R. Narayanan, Mr. K.R. Narayanan is known as activist president. Why he is known as activist president? Because he refused to sign several bills which were arbitrary in nature, and he even refused to invoke article 356 in few states like UP. So if you remember, the president KR Narayanan returning the cabinet's recommendation in 1997. So the cabinet recommended to the president in 1997 that imposition of president's rule in UP. Okay. However, K.R. Narayanan has refused to invoke Article 356, and this has provided for an active role of the president in safeguarding the constitutional provision. Right. So this is the first part, and the second part, there has been a rise of coalition governments because particularly after 1989, so we have seen a series of coalition governments at the central level. So in those coalition governments, the regional parties used to play a very significant role because the central level, since the governments have lacked the majority, the regional parties used to mobilize voters on the caste and religious lines. So hence there's a rise of regional parties. There's an increasing participation of regional parties at the central level. Now, whenever there's an increasing participation of the regional parties at the central level, it is virtually impossible for the central government to dismiss the state governments using Article 356. Okay, so this is another political factor which has reduced the use of Article 356. So there's an example is also given. So the example says in 1998, so regional parties like Telugu Desam Party in Andhra Pradesh, Shiromani Akali Dal in Punjab, so they have played a very crucial role in forming the governments at the center. So because of these particular reasons, it is impossible for the center to misuse Article 356. So there were instances the center has refrained from using Article 356 in states like Bihar, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal. Okay, so the other political factors, which have actually contributed for the reduced frequency of Article 356 include the search for regional allies. In fact, the governments at the central level, they used to search for regional allies so that they have a strong majority at the central level, and it would be impossible to destabilize the governments through no confidence motion. So therefore, the central governments has been increasingly searching for the regional allies. So whenever they are searching for the regional allies at the states level, it is not possible for the central government to misuse or to frequently use Article 356. Okay, because of this search for regional allies, so the cautious approach was followed by the center when it comes to Article 356 because it could strain the relations with potential coalition partners. So since there are number of coalition partners within a single government, so the government don't want to sever ties with those coalition partners. Now, after that, the constitutionalism by governors. Now, governors have followed the constitutional spirit in the letter and spirit against the whims and fancies of the central government, against the narrow political agendas of the central government. So, there were instances like former governor of Tamil Nadu, who is Shri Surjit Singh Barnala. So, he actually refused to send a report to the center recommending the president's. Okay, so therefore he has protected, ensured the constitutionalism uh, and he ensured the protection to the constitutional provisions, and it exactly reflects the spirit of constitutionalism among the constitutional authorities like governors. Okay, governors. Now, after that, there's an increased political awareness among the people also. Uh, Whenever the center has been increasingly using Article 356, obviously people would know about this. So, why the government has been toppling the state governments? In fact, they are enjoying the majority. So, the arbitrariness involved in toppling these governments at the states level would, in fact, create a kind of a distrust, a mistrust with respect to the center government. So whenever there has been a rise of internet and the social media, people are increasingly aware about these things. So therefore, fearing the negative public sentiment whenever the government uses such tricks to topple the government, the people would actually aware of this. So therefore, the government thinking about the repercussions has reduced the usage of Article 356. So now we have addressed both the political factors and also the legal factors. Now, when you have addressed these two factors, then you can conclude the answer. Okay, so there has been a decreased usage of Article 356 by Union government since 1990s. So, for the decreased use of Article 356, we have discussed several number of factors. However, it actually signifies the evolving or the dynamic nature of Indian governance and the constitution, and also the steadfast dedication to upholding the democratic values. So, because the judiciary has played its role, the legislature and the governors, president, and the people also have played a very crucial role in upholding the democratic values. Okay, so they have shown a steadfast dedication in upholding democratic values, and it has ensured the federal harmony between the center and the states, and that has been envisioned by the constitution itself. And this shift actually demonstrates that India's resilient democracy, okay, and ability to self-correct. Even if something goes wrong, Indian democracy is able to recover and self-correct itself. Now, see how progressive and positive this conclusion is actually. So, you should maintain such positiveness, okay, in the conclusion, so that it creates a better impression over your answer. Right. So the next question, and very important question, is with respect to women representation in legislature. Okay, now, so we need to discuss how the civil society has contributed for the effective and the meaningful representation of women in the state legislature. So recently, if you know, the center has passed the 33 percentage reservation bill for women in parliament, both parliament and also the state legislature. Okay, state legislature. However, the civil society has played a very crucial role in this regard, ensuring or increasing the meaningful participation of women in the state legislature. And in this regard, so we'll try and understand how the civil society has actually played a very meaningful and effective role. Now, first, you have to define what is civil society group. So, civil society groups are actually the non-governmental organizations. So, what are those non-governmental organizations? Are not-for-profit organizations. So, they don't work for the profit. So, rather they work for the larger social interest of a group of people or the community. So therefore, civil society groups are also a non-governmental organization. So they are not directly related with the government. And those civil society organizations or the groups represent the interest and the will of the citizens. So whatever interest, for example, there are environmental groups, and there are women empowerment groups, and there are also business groups. So there are farmers groups. So there are wide variety of these interest groups, and they actually represent the will of the citizens. Now, in the Indian context, so whenever we talk about India and the functioning of the civil society organizations, so we need to remember that India has a huge potential for the civil society organizations, because we still facing problems like gender inequality, poverty, illiteracy, child labor. So there are several social problems. So in this regard, the civil society groups have been, mushroomed over a period of time. So with these development of civil society groups, they also played a very pivotal role in encouraging women's representation in state legislature. So uh, they have the goal of increasing the women's participation in the state legislature. So in this regard, they have played a very important role in ensuring the women's representation, because women's representation is very important for balanced and inclusive democracy. So whenever the representation is biased towards a particular community, biased towards a particular gender, we cannot call it as an inclusive democracy, a balanced democracy. However, whenever there is a social representation, whenever there is a representation of female who are often underrepresented, then it is called as a balanced and inclusive democracy. And those civil society organizations or civil society groups, they have played a very important role in balanced and inclusive democracy, and that actually represents the diverse populace of the nation. Okay, so we know that we have a very diverse populace, and those civil society organizations have represented diverse populace of the nation. Now, what exactly is the contribution of civil society groups for effective and meaningful participation and representation of women? So this is the first part of the answer. So firstly, they have played a very important role in sensitization programs. So what kind of a sensitization programs? For example, they have organized Jagori and Swayam. So with these two programs, Jagori and Swayam, they are examples of such sensitization programs. And so with the help of these two programs, these civil society groups have constantly tried to sensitize populace about the need for women's rights and nurturing women's participation in the politics. Okay, so they have also simultaneously organized various awareness programs to create mass awareness among the public about the need for women representation. Now, after that, there were also leadership training programs that were being organized. For example, there was a program called Women's Political Empowerment Program. So, this Women's Political Empowerment Program is actually executed by the Institute of Social Sciences. Okay, so this Women's Political Empowerment Program has a remarkable achievement, because it has played a very crucial and vital role in empowering around 15,000 women in Panchayati Raj institutions. Okay, so whenever there has been an increased participation of the women at the local level, at the panchayat level, so it is often called as grooming a greater role for the woman in the state legislature, right? So we have been, grooming women representatives. So now they are ready ready to contest elections for the state legislature. Now after that, they have also provided training and support to women candidates. Yes, the civil society organizations have played a very crucial role. So not just providing a mass awareness among the public, but they have also organized training and support programs. So here one example has been given. So the example is Swayam. So Swayam is an initiative that actually worked for giving training, skill development of women representatives, so that they are ready to be take part in politics. Okay, so please remember such examples. Now after that, the grassroots mobilization. Now if you are into the UPSC preparation, you very often hear the words like seva. Okay, so self-employed women's association and Kudumbashri. So they have undertaken extensive efforts. Okay, extensive and enormous efforts in mobilizing and empowering women at the grassroots level. Therefore, they have set a robust foundation. And through this robust foundation, they used to train women and they used to build capacities and skills among the women so that the women are ready for the political participation. Now, after that, we have discussed how these civil society organizations have actually playing a very crucial role. However, there are certain challenges as well, because the question itself has asked about the role of civil society organization and the challenges also. So it is very important that whenever the challenges are mentioned, you should also mention the solutions, suggestions, or the way forward. And the first and foremost challenge is a patriarchal society. In India, we have the patriarchal society. So, in fact, in states like Haryana, Rajasthan, UP, these patriarchal norms have been deeply, so okay, they are deeply entrenched. So when we compare the northern states with the southern states are relatively better in the women representation. So they actively take part in the economic activities. However, in the northern states like Haryana, there's a deep-rooted patriarchal norms, and they have historically impeded the women's active participation. So it actually shows the glaring gender disparity in legislative representation. In fact, there are traditional institutions like ka panchayats in states like Haryana. So they have also further entrenching the patriarchal attitudes in the society. So this is the first and foremost challenge. So the second most important challenge is low representation. So women actually constitute 10% of the total members of the state legislature. Okay, so this is a very less compared to the global average of around 25.5 percentage. So therefore, there is a need to increase the woman representation. So only then we could be able to build a balanced and the inclusive, democracy. So otherwise, we cannot call it an inclusive democracy, an inclusive society. So when women are politically empowered, it could lead to the economic empowerment and the social empowerment also. In a society like India, where the gender inequalities are deeply rooted in the society, it is very important that we provide, such a representation to women to uplift them. So the global average representation of women is 25.5 percentage. On the other hand, India has just 10 percentage of women representation. So the third aspect is lack of support system. Now the family has not been extending support to the woman. So in case if she wanted to be part of the politics or the if she wanted to participate in the political process, so in fact she lacks training, she lacks capacities, she lacks skills. Therefore, all these factors have been impeding the women's participation. So, in fact, there was a comprehensive study conducted in this regard. So, this study has revealed that the women MLAs have been facing various constraints, okay, various barriers. So, what are those barriers? So, they lack experience. So, they lack training, mentoring, networking, information, and autonomy. And so, further, a patriarchal society and participation of women is very challenging. Now, after that, women also have certain safety concerns. So, these safety concerns have been reported by the Amnesty International. So, Amnesty International found that women politicians in India, they have been facing these sexist abuses, rape threats, and also death threats. So, in this specific context, it is a very challenging for women to be part of the political process. And in fact, the women candidates who are part of the political campaigns, so they also very often face physical attacks and intimidation even during the election campaigns. So, because of these factors, it has been deterring women to be part of the political process. Now after that, we should also talk about resource constraints. Women members do not actually have the resources like what male members used to spend during the elections. In fact, there was a survey conducted by the Association for Democratic Reforms. So, Association for Democratic Reforms, a survey revealed that women candidates received only 9% of the total funds declared by the political parties. So, the total funds of the political party, only just 9% is being received by the women candidates. So, after that, in fact, the political parties lack the intra-party democracy. Okay, intra-party democracy. So when there is a lack of intra-party democracy, it is very obvious that the political parties have been traditionally, conventionally preferring the male candidates because of their higher winning chances. However, there is a need for intra-party democracy within the political parties, and they should also give equal amount of seats for the women candidates because there is a need for increasing representation of women. Now, whenever we have whenever we write challenges, so we should also write solutions, suggestions, and possible way forward. So in this question, so the way forward is we need to the civil society organizations should organize the mentorship programs for women. Okay, so for example, there's a mentorship program called Women to Women. So this is an international leadership program. So the major objective of this woman to woman program is fostering the mentorship programs among the women. Okay, and so along with the fostering mentorship programs, so it also established a women leaders guide. So there are already a group of women leaders, and they usually guide the aspiring young females. So they share their insights, they share their experiences, and they help navigate the political landscape of young aspiring female candidates. Now, after that, so the financial grants is also the need of the hour. For example, the corporate sector can play a very crucial role. There's an example called Facebook's She Leads initiative. So, in this particular initiative, the Facebook has been providing grants, providing funds to encourage women entrepreneurship. So therefore, the corporate sector has a very crucial role to play in this regard. Now, after that, the capacity building workshops should also be organized, and in fact, the National Commission for Women, so which has earlier organized the capacity building workshops. So those capacity building workshops will impart training, will impart the skills among the women. So therefore, they will gain insights into how to actually participate in the politics, and that is actually the foundation. Now, after that, there should be a comprehensive research and also data compilation. So when we have the data of representation, the levels of representation of women at the legislature, at the local level, and that data can be effectively used to convince the public opinion, or to change the public opinion, public attitudes, and also an effective way to convince the parliamentarians and the political parties to increase the women representation. In fact, there are organizations called Women in Politics India. So they have been tracking women representation in Indian politics. So they have been compiling data, and they are also creating comprehensive reports. So with those data and the reports, so they provide important policy recommendations for the women representation. Now after that, there are a set of legislative reforms. So those legislative reforms are also the need of the hour. For example, drawing inspiration from Rwanda. So Rwanda is only country in the world which has 50 percentage of women representation. So highest women representation. So therefore, the countries like India should take, inspiration from those countries. Should follow the lead of these countries like Rwanda. So despite the developing country, the Rwanda has truly made a significant strides in terms of providing representation to women. So therefore, in India, there's a need for providing 33% of reservation for women. So when we empower women politically, so that could have a spin-off effects. That could have a multiplier effect on the young women out there. So it inspires them, it motivates them, so that we can create a gender, equal society, a meaningful, egalitarian society. That is the need of the hour. So, however, in the conclusion, you just have to further emphasize on revitalizing these civil society organizations. Okay, so now the civil society organizations require leadership. The civil society organizations require technology, so they have to impart technology. They need leadership, and they also require financial support and the governmental support. So, in this way, they can effectively play a crucial role in enhancing the representation of women in the state legislature. So, we need to go beyond the 33% reservation ceiling. Okay, so when we provide 33% of reservation, still women are not equal, despite women have 50% of voting share. So, even if we provide 30% of reservation, so that's still meaningless. Okay, so therefore we need to go beyond the 33% of reservation and provide equal representation to women. Now the next question is about GST. So in this particular question, the examiner has not directly asked about the GST. Okay, so because the examiner has not directly asked about the GST, several candidates don't know what is 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. So either they left this question in the examination, or they have written, for example, National Commission for Backward Classes through 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Uh, uh, Constitutional status has been provided. So some candidates have written, reservation to economically weaker sections. So that has been provided by the 103rd Amendment. Therefore, it is also important that you should have a basic understanding of these constitutional amendment acts. So, especially the recent constitutional amendment acts. So, in fact, there were instances in the UPSC exam that UPSC has also asked about the first constitutional amendment. Okay, so first constitutional amendment. So therefore, I would suggest you to have a basic understanding of these constitutional amendments. Now, so in the introduction, you just introduce what is 101 Constitutional Amendment Act. So this Constitutional Amendment Act has introduced GST regime in India. Now, the aim of the GST reform is reforming the country's indirect taxation system. So earlier, the indirect taxation system was skewed in nature with a lower revenue potential, and in fact, several business operations are outside the tax net. So, however, the indirect taxation regime was reformed by the GST Council, which have a very significant benefits for our overall revenue base. The act has actually replaced the complex web of state and central taxes and unified a GST system. Okay, it has created a unified GST system. So, in line with one nation, one tax, right? So this is the motto: one nation and one tax. Now, the question has also asked us to write the significance of 101 Constitutional Amendment Act. So, in this, firstly, the streamlining of tax compliance. So, how it has streamlined the tax compliance? Because now a seamless flow of availability of a common set of data. Okay, so Now the data has been streamlined. A common set of data is available for both center and state governments. So therefore, it has made the direct and indirect tax collections more and more effective. Okay, so it has led to a robust data collection. Secondly, it has reduced tax evasion. So in Indian economy, tax evasion is one of the most pressing challenge. uh, Corporate companies using the loopholes in existing taxation laws, so they used to evade the taxes. So therefore, a GST has become a self-policing mechanism. So with a robust digital infrastructure. So therefore, because of these features of the GST Act, it has become difficult for businesses to evade taxes. So they were no longer able to evade taxes. So this has encouraged. So earlier, those businesses, those economic activities which are outside the taxation base, now they come under the taxation base. So therefore, widening our existing taxation base. Now the third aspect is formalization of the economy. Now how it has led to the formalization of the economy, of course. So whenever the economy is in the unorganized sector, whenever the economy is in the informal sector, so majority of the taxes will not come under the taxation net. Okay, for example, there's a segment of land and real estate. Now these sectors which are earlier outside the taxation net now come under the GST. So because of this GST net has been widened, so there has been an increasing revenue, okay, increased revenue base, and also a greater formalization and transparency in sectors like cement, steel, and other steels. So which were earlier outside the taxation net. Now, after that, there's a efficiency in the indirect tax compliance has also significantly improved. For example, when GST has been introduced in India, it has actually brought down the existing inefficiencies. Okay, so there were wide inefficiencies within the indirect taxation regime. So therefore, the GST has made those efficiencies less, and it has also reduced the interaction between the taxpayer and the authorities. So whenever it has reduced the interaction, it increases the transparency. It reduces the chances of corruption, and that is very crucial in GST. Now, after that, so automation of the tax compliance has also been possible, right? So GST in fact streamlined the tax compliance for the manufacturers. So so there were manufacturers earlier used to pay a huge amount of GST, or huge amounts of taxes. So whenever the GST has been introduced, the tax compliance has been further streamlined. So therefore, it has reduced the need for multiple returns and further simplifying the assessment process. Okay, so automation will also help the taxpayers and the tax collecting authority. Okay, so now after that, so the input tax credit has also been provided through the GST Act. So whenever the government has been providing the input tax credit, this has further boosted the revenue collection. Okay, so input tax credit has further boosted the revenue collection. So it has also enhanced the operations throughout India. Since it has worked throughout India with the motto of one nation and one tax, so it further enhanced the operations throughout India. So because of the unified tax system of the GST, it has made the goods transportation across India very easy. Okay, so recently the e-way bill has also introduced, if you know e-way bills. So e-way bill further making the transportation of the goods easy across the borders. So the second part of the question which has been asking is the accommodative spirit of the federalism that has been reflected in the 101 Constitutional Amendment. So, how 101 Constitutional Amendment Act has actually reflected the spirit of federalism. Now, firstly, the GST Council through Article 279A. So, this GST Council has representation from. So, this GST Council has been established, okay, through Article 279A of the Constitution. So, this GST Council has representation from both central and state governments. Okay, so this has fostered the cooperation and collective decision making in the GST regime. Okay, now the decisions are not solely taken by the center or not solely taken by the state governments. So it has fostered a collaborative and a cooperative federalism. For example, in the GST Council, so 1/3 of the representation is being given to the center. 1/3 of the representation given to the center, and 2/3 of the representation has been given to the states. So, of course, this is a very good example of collaborative and cooperative federalism between the center and states. Okay, so in fact, the GST Council usually play a very crucial in deciding GST rates. So taking the inputs from all the stakeholders. After that, so there is a revenue sharing model as well, because the GST Council used to play a very crucial role in determining the tax rates. So, for example, there are 5 tax slabs within the GST. So, therefore, the GST Council usually play a very crucial role in determining tax rates. So, it also provide exemptions. So, if you look at exemptions, for example, alcohol has been exempted from the GST. Aviation turbine fuel has also been exempted from the GST, and also the petroleum and the natural gas has also been exempted from the GST. So, however, recently there are demands that so these things should be part of the GST, so that the recent increase of petroleum prices could be reduced and it could provide relief to the general consumers. So, however, so there was a strong objection from the state governments. Why? Because the state governments objecting to this because they lose the source of revenue. So already, because of the introduction of the GST, some states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Maharashtra, so they are a huge manufacturing base. They are producing states. Okay, so they have lost the revenue because of the introduction of GST. Because GST is a consumption-based tax. Now, so effectively addressing the fiscal requirements of the states because of the revenue sharing model that has been within the GST. Now, after that, we already discussed this revenue sharing model of the GST, and after that, a GST compensation has also been provided within the GST Act. Now, because of the introduction of the GST, there has been a potential revenue losses. Okay, there has been a potential revenue losses. So, why revenue losses? Because GST is a consumption-based tax. Now, for example, a particular product has been produced in the state of Tamil Nadu, and that product has been a product has been produced in Tamil Nadu, and that product has been consumed in West Bengal. So now the taxes, the GST will be levied by the state of West Bengal, but not Tamil Nadu. So therefore, there is a huge loss for the state of Tamil Nadu. So whatever losses the states have been making for the implementation of GST, the government will pay, the central government will pay the compensation for 5 years. Okay, so this decision has actually reflected the cooperative and the accommodative approach within GST. Now, after that, there's also a dual structure. So, what is dual structure? Dual structure is there's a central GST, state GST, and also integrated GST. So, it has also reflected the federalism in action, because the center has powers to levy taxes on state central GST, and state governments have powers to levy taxes on state GST. However, you can also write some recommendations, suggestions to overcome the existing shortcomings within the GST. Okay, so after writing such suggestions to overcome shortcomings, you can conclude by writing the division of tax revenue collection between the central and state governments will allow each government to independently levy and collect taxes on the same transaction. Now, this is actually not a conclusion, but this is part of the earlier point. But in conclusion, you ultimately stress on the shortcomings within the GST and need for the a robust GST framework. Okay, a robust GST framework, and that addresses the concerns of the state governments, and it actually works on the spirit of cooperative and collaborative federalism. So you need to use such decent words and make sure the conclusion is positive in nature. So okay, the next question is explain the structure of the parliamentary committee system and how far the financial committees helped in the institutionalization of Indian parliament. So this question is about the parliamentary committees within India and how those financial committees. So within the parliamentary committees, there are financial committees. What are the financial committees? For example, there is a public accounts committee. So estimates committee. Okay, estimates committee. So those committees are known as financial committees. Now, how these financial committees have helped in the institutionalization of Indian parliament? So this question has two parts. So this is the first part and the remaining is the second part. Now in the first part, you need to talk about the parliamentary committee system. Okay, so this system, the parliamentary committee system, is very essential mechanism for the legislative functioning. Okay, so for the effective functioning of Indian democracy, the parliamentary committee system usually plays a very important and a crucial role. Okay, so this actually comprises standing committees, ad hoc committees, and each of these committees have been playing a very pivotal role in the detailed investigation and analysis of legislative proposals, budgets, and other government activities. So these are both standing committees and also the ad hoc committees. They usually play a very important and a crucial role in scrutinizing government budgets, proposing recommendations to government policies. Now, first we need to understand the structure of the parliamentary committees. Then we will discuss the essence of the committee. So, essence of the parliamentary committees. Firstly, there are standing committees. Please understand these standing committees are permanent committees. Okay, so they are permanent in nature. So they are not constituted for a specific purpose, but they are permanent in nature. So they are actually set up each year to work continuously on the range of matters. For example, there's an example has been given, the Public Accounts Committee. So the main role of the Public Accounts Committee is actually reviewing the annual audit reports of the Comptroller and Auditor General. Now the second aspect is ad hoc committees. So unlike the standing committees, ad hoc committees are not permanent committees. So they are constituted for a specific purpose. So whenever the purpose has been met, so those ad hoc committees will be dissolved, right? So for the specific purposes. For example, if you see a joint parliamentary committee has been constituted to particularly scrutinize the personal data protection bill. Now, after scrutinizing this personal data protection bill, the ad hoc committee will be, dissolved, unlike the standing committees. Now, after that, there are also departmentally related standing committees. Okay, so those departmentally related standing committees actually scrutinize demand for grants of various ministers. So there are different ministries, and different ministries require finances to implement government policies, government schemes. So therefore, these DRSCs will scrutinize the demand for grants of various ministries. They in fact examine the bills of the government and also the policies of the government. Now after that, we also have a financial committees. So what are those financial committees? Estimates committee is a financial committee, and public accounts committee also. So their main role is that they delve deep into the financial matters, and they also develop reports, and those reports will help in effective oversight of the government expenditure. Right. Now after that, we need to write the role of financial committees in institutionalization of the Indian Parliament. So how they have played a very crucial role in institutionalization of Indian Parliament. So this is the first part of the this is the second part of the question. So firstly, they play a very crucial role in scrutinizing the government expenditure. Okay, so whatever the government has been spending, whatever the government expenditure, so they play a very crucial role. So there's an example that the public accounts committees report on the 2G spectrum allocation has brought a very significant irregularities. Okay, so thereby ensuring a greater accountability. So you can write such an example. Now after that, the expert consultations. So these financial committees have the expert support. Okay, expert consultations would be possible so that there would be a better insights into the policy. For example, during the formulation of the GST bill, various economists and industry experts were consulted. Okay, so that there would be a comprehensive and feasible taxation system in India. Now after that, the cross party deliberations. So whenever the particular bill, the particular policy has been introduced, and so different parties will analyze those aspects. Okay, so it is not specific to one particular political party. Okay, so this further promote the cooperative approach. So the consensus building during the discussions on the GST bill in Rajya Sabha standing committee. Okay, this is the another example. Now after that, the financial committees will ensure accountability and transparency as well. So for example, a detailed report provided by the public accounts committee on the controversial Rafale fighter jet acquisition, it has showcased, or it has showed the commitment to maintaining transparency. Now after that, the feedback and the recommendations. Okay, so they often incorporate feedback from various stakeholders in their recommendations. Now they take into consideration the feedback of different stakeholders, and then give recommendations, so which are based on the consensus. Okay, so for example, you can give the example of companies amendment bill 2020. Now after that, so they are also facing different issues, okay, in the institutionalization of the Indian Parliament. Right, so what are those issues? The issues include the insufficient time. Okay, so whenever they are scrutinizing bills, they were given a very less time, insufficient time to comprehensively scrutinize those bills. For example, the farm bills of 2020, they were quickly pushed through the parliament. So when they were quickly passed through the parliament, the concerns were raised among the various stakeholders, because those bills were not referred to the parliamentary committees or the financial committees, and quickly pushed through the parliament. So therefore, there's a need to give a sufficient time for the parliamentary committees. Now after that, there was a limited expert consultations also. For example, the discussions pertaining to the Citizenship Amendment Act. Okay, so a broader spectrum of perspectives uh, were not taken into consideration, because whenever we consider the broader spectrum of perspectives, it garner through a more a more exhaustive consultation, so it makes the policy more and more democratic. Now after that, those recommendations provided by the parliamentary committees are actually not binding on the nature. Okay, so during the discussion of the land acquisition bill also, many critical suggestions were put forth by these committees, but those recommendations were not considered by the government, or they were not in the final draft. Now after that, bypassing committees. So in recent times, there were instances of a very less number of less than around 16% or 20% of bills only referred to the parliament. So compared to 61% and 70% of the bills in the previous Lok Sabha. So therefore, there has been a trend has been ongoing that bypassing committees. For example, Aadhaar Amendment Bill that was not referred to the any parliamentary committee. So therefore, in conclusion, you can write that there is a need for adopting a practice like UK where every bill is being referred to the parliamentary committees. So this way, it can make the bill or the law more effective efficiency. It can bring transparency and the accountability, so it reduces the hastiness of the executive when introducing such a bill. Okay, so this is how you need to write these answers. Okay, so that's all for today, and thank you so much. And the remaining questions we will discuss in the next session. So please like the video. Okay, so because it motivates us to give a best from our side. Thank you.